बेटा?
तेरा भी
कौन?
नोकिया देखो,
साल आ गया उसके
ले लो मेरा नोकिया का।
It's your mobile
bag.
वजन नहीं चाहिए निकालना
बैग बना सकते हैं?
नहीं
I think we can make it.
चलो ये फोन से क्या देख रहा हूँ पासवर्ड
हाँ वो पासवर्ड देख रहा है वो हैक करेगा सॉरी
2021
नहीं 10 तो था 3 भी था
नहीं 0 तो था
बाकी जो
1 भी
पढ़ाते तो भी
0 भी था
था
1 भी था
हाँ 2 भी था
2 भी था 3 भी था
वेरी
दो
गुड
टाइम तो बदल जल्दी फाइन करो चलो
नाम नहीं आई अरे चाच
तो कर दे
फ्राइडे तो नहीं है आज सैटरडे है
मेरा बैग तो निकालो
नहीं हुआ भाई अभी तक फेडरलिज्म बस का इसका
अरे एक ही हुआ
बाउंस
वो बेल्जियम वाला था बाउच है आपको वही वाला अच्छे से मतलब पढ़ के सब हो गया सेम सब में ही हुआ
अच्छा दिमाग का
उसको कोई हमारे सब कर गया हमारे टेस्ट पेपर दे दो ना घर तक गए भाई ना सही बोल रही है
हां
मैंने सही हैक बताया भाई एक पेपर दो आंसर की हो जाता
वांग में किधर है
लेट
एंड वन मोर वन इट
चलो चलो
ओए
ऑस्ट्रेलिया लास्ट वीक का
What was that?
लास्ट वीक आएगा ना
Why?
उसको दे देना ये लो अरे इधर आओ ना
where is your pen
मैम टाइटल के थ्रू
अरे
क्या
ये बात नहीं है ना
come on Nelson Mandela slide first slide Arey, but every Saturday you have a class.
When I bought volume.
You brought volume, Rituraj. I'm going to throw you out. I am not joking. When we had started Nelson Mandela, you should have brought your textbook. Last time also he did great. We have finished both the poems, Dust of Snow and this one, Fire and Ice. Now we are on the next chapter, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. This so you definitely will know. Appetite, which we had discussed. What is appetite?
It is a political system in which racism is done with black people.
Racism is done with black people. Very good.
There were what happened.
Separates people by their race.
Yes. Not by black people. We tell you one black people you come to know.
Even Indians face
Yeah. Even appetite was faced by Indians also.
But Africa is also South Africa.
The term initially started from there. But anything dealt with racism, it talks about it's a system that deals with racism. Yes. Understood. That is what is appetite. You cannot it started there, but you cannot. This definitely you will know where it is, which of the three countries named below are the political system. South Africa, because they were the
Existed earlier, like in
It existed everywhere, but the longest it existed was South Africa. South Africa got independence very, very late. Okay. Now, Nelson Mandela, you have heard, we had discussed about Nelson Mandela. I had shown you the PPT. Okay. What was 10th May?
It was a day there in Africa. South Africa got freedom.
And
Nelson Mandela took oath, becoming the first
correct.
president.
That was a day when he took oath as the first president. Independence Day of South Africa, as well as 2 vice presidents also were there. Okay, so read.
Friends made not bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who are coming to pay their respects before the inauguration.
Now, if you see, when we have Republic Day parade, remember we always invite some foreign dignitaries for the Republic Day parade to observe and all that. Even when you are having UNESCO, or you have any kind of organization, there's always people coming from all over the country. So dignitaries, when we are talking about the people, prime minister, president, those kind, foreign ministers and all, so when they were getting independence, the day they were getting independence, there was basically, when he was being installed in the office, at that particular date, quite a few. Besieged is basically a lot of people from all over the world came. Okay, so it was like dawned bright and clear. What does dawned here means? Rose or began. Okay, started with it was bright and clear. Yeah, the day was starting. Dawn is basically just before sunrise. Okay, dawn is that. But when I use the word as a verb, it started or began. Okay, it can be used when it is in ed form. It's a verb. If it is dawn, it's a noun. The difference is that. We have it now. Dawn, as in it was dawn. That means it was just before sunrise. And if it dawned on me that he was lying. So what do I mean by that? It dawned on me that he was lying.
Realization.
Correct. I realized that he was lying. So you can use it in various ways. That's how beautiful words are. Words can be used in various ways. So here dawn is basically it began. It started with it. And now, see, why I'm making you observe these things, because later on you see how his, initially everybody was against him. If you see, the same people who were now surrounding him, they didn't support South Africa at that particular time when they required that kind of support. And now, because he's going to get an achievement or something, people surrounded him. Besieged him, they came around and wished him and all that. The same thing happens when a cricketer or any sports person. Simple. They don't know you. But when you score a goal and all that, then suddenly everybody is jumping. Even your enemy is jumping over you. Happens. That is how situation is. That's what we are talking about, how humans are. No. Okay. Besieged by dignitaries and world leaders. So dignitaries are all renowned people or respected dignitaries, and normally respected people we call. Remember, even in your speeches, when we say, I welcome all the dignitaries and honorable such and such person. Dignitaries are all the renowned people or respected people. I said no. Who are coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. Pay their respects. What do I mean by that? To give respect. Yes. When he's at this particular position, they're giving him respect. When he required their help. So, the inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The first time, this was the largest gathering in so many years in South Africa. Otherwise, there was never ever that kind of large gathering of international leaders. As I said, prime ministers, presidents of various countries at that particular time. So this was the first time that kind of people came. Read this particular paragraph.
The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic, non-racial government. On that
Stop. I said one paragraph. Always stop at one paragraph. I said no. Why are you late? Rickshaw nahi mili. Couldn't walk and come. Then very good. Don't come. No, then go back. Time bhi lagta hai.
out.
What is in Hindi medium school? Out. You already in. Out. I didn't allow you to enter.
Sorry.
Why sorry? Everything will be all right. You'll murder me and then say sorry. That also they do. Idiots like that. Alright. So it took in the amphitheater. What is an amphitheater? You have an idea what is an amphitheater? In olden days. In olden days you had the stadium. Stadium, right? You had only seats and below it was the pit platform. This one. Amphitheater is there is a stage. Understood? And there around it, but there's no roof. It's like a stadium with no roof.
Cricket stadium.
No, but it has a stage. Amphitheater is not a full stadium. It's a full round, you're saying.
It's like a semicircle.
It is semicircle with a stage in the center at the bottom. Understood?
Or like the Greek and Roman.
Yes, thank you. The Greek and Roman, like Shakespeare's that, like it was an amphitheater. They had balconies there and then there, and there was a stage there. Okay, so it formed by the Union buildings of Pretoria. Pretoria was this. See, a building without roof with many rows of seats seating in typical ancient Greece and Rome. For decades, they had been a seat of white supremacy. So white, up till now you are paying attention, na? White supremacy at that time, Britishers were the one which were ruling, and up till now they were ruling that. And now it was a site of rainbow of gathering. Now rainbow of gathering is not talking about different rainbow colors in the sky. It is talking about people from different nations who comes. Like if you see, like we were called brown. Remember that discrimination was done by we were brown. The Chinese were yellow. If you see,
Chinese were like this.
The Native Americans were red.
the Native Americans were known as red. They were discriminated according to their color. So that's why rainbow of color is basically talking about leaders from different nations. It is not talking about colors per se. Okay. Of nations for installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. This was the first time when all different nations came together for this particular function. On the lovely autumn day, you know we don't have autumn. It's just after spring and before winter. Okay. On lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zinani. So his daughter's name was Zinani, and he went with his daughter for this particular function. On the podium, Mr. D. Clerk was first sworn in as the second deputy president. As I said, there were two vice presidents. So second deputy president, then this is Nelson Mandela. Tobacco Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. So there were two, and first they were sworn in, then the president was sworn in. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the republic and its people. It was a republic government. So every leader, they are sworn in. They have to take an oath to uphold all the rules and regulations of the country and to work for the people, right? I pledged to devote myself to the assembled guests and the watching world. I said, So this was his speech. This is a part, remember, it's an extract from his autobiography, right? His life. Autobiography is when a person writes about his life, correct? And it's a part from his life. So this is one day which he's taken out from that particular book. One day he's taken out from there. So today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. That means we are here to support, to give respect to freedom and liberty. Remember, after facing oppression for so many years, this was the first time where they can breathe in fresh air without anybody dominating or suppressing them. Because even to, like, to go to apply for a job, they were discriminated. To even to go to the washroom, the washrooms were separate. Even to go to a normal theater, movie theater, they were not allowed. If they faced, if we go to see about it, you should read about what they were faced. They were flogged just if they were sitting next to them. They would kick, and sometimes they would be killed because they had this on the same place they shared, the same room they shared. It was literally very, very pathetic and bad, and we as humans have treated other humans like that. That kind of hatred. That's why we said, remember the poem which we did, hatred. It is one very cold, and that can destroy the world, because that hatred is one thing which not only makes the person who you hate suffer, but yourself also, if you hate that, you also suffer in that. And then Nelson Mandela has brought that point very, very clearly. He says both of the first people suffer. It's not only the person who hates, but the person who's hated also suffers. Both of them equally suffer.
But how does a person who hates?
The person who hates suffers, never gets happiness, never gets satisfaction. You are always insecure. You're always trying to do one up to the others, and you always try to, like, when you hit somebody, you are trying to destroy your good, like the good in you. That's how you destroy it. It's both people who are equally suffer. It is not only one, and that's what is very, very clear. The one who oppresses and the oppressor, both are not happy. One who's oppressed, definitely that person is not happy because he's not getting any kind of freedom. And the oppressor also is trying to maintain his position and the power that I am this one great. And in that also he has to struggle. So both are not happy. Okay. So today all of us, by our presence, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Confer is, as I said, you give your respect, you pay this one. So to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, it was a human disaster because there were many people who were killed also. Must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. From our freedom fighters, it took a lot of freedom struggles, and there were many freedom fighters in India also. It took a very long time to get out of that particular thing. And then a society was born of which humanity should be proud. We as humans should be proud. Because because of their efforts, we are what we are today. If it wasn't them, we wouldn't have been here. We would still have been slaves. So it was that. We who were outlaws, remember, even Bhagat Singh, even Mahatma Gandhi, and all were jailed. They were supposed to be outlaws. As in, what are outlaws?
Break like the law.
Correct. Criminals, correct. Criminals. They were supposed to be criminals. Why? Because they're rebelling against the Britishers. And Africans were rebelling against the Britishers again. So, we were outlaws not so long ago. Have today been given the rare privilege to be the host to nations of the world on our own soil. And on their own soil, they were considered outlaws. The biggest irony in life, your own motherland, you're considered to be criminals. And now they have got the privilege of hosting different nations on their very soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with people of a country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, and for human dignity. This is we thank whoever's come, distinguished guests who have come, that like, to stand by us in this particular moment. It's a common victory, because when you're standing together, we are supporting justice, we are supporting peace, and we are supporting human dignity. Dignity is respect. Every single person has self-respect, and you cannot stamp on that self-respect. That's why I say your sometimes your comments are such racist comments that you all don't realize like how hurtful your comments can be. And it's a small thing, but he, as a child, you don't realize it. When you come to adulthood, the same thing becomes a cause of your hatred. And because of same thing, there is a lot of fighting going on, and there is destruction. When there is fighting, there is destruction. So that is what it is. So he says, we are all the world leaders, and us, we are standing here together for peace, for justice, and for human dignity. Human dignity is human respect. See, we have at last achieved a political emancipation. Emancipation, that means we are free from suppression. We are free to live our life. We are free from restrictions. We are free to get out of our house. That also was a freedom which was not there.
And they were not able to go out of the house also.
If they step in a white person's house, their shadow cannot fall on them. Or they cannot, they have to be within a specific time within their house. They cannot roam the roads freely. There was a lot of restrictions, Rituraj. You think even in India, they were literally, you see, Lagan is a small piece. You see Bhagat Singh, you see Lala Lajpat Rai, you see Mahatma Gandhi, you see pictures, movies, Bollywood movies like that.
I've seen the Bhagat Singh movie, and in the beginning of the movie, a group of men were literally beaten just
Yeah.
because they were traveling in a group.
Correct. They were not allowed to go in a group.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be
Single.
yeah. No, they were supposed that if they were traveling in a group, they are plotting against the British government. So they were flogged, literally flogged. They would take a stick and they will beat their life out. Sometimes they will kill them. They were treated worse than animals. Worse than animals. They were literally even in, and you've seen which movie was that recently? Even this outer caste, no, I'm talking about recent times. Wait, there is a Tamil movie or Malayalam movie. I'm not sure, but no, not RRR. It is based on this. They are snake charmers and how they are treated by people. It is also based on racism. Huh? It is also Surya. He was a lawyer. This wives, they were snake. This one, and they were like, just because they were snake charmers and belonged to a lower society, they said that they robbed. Okay, and he was killed for no reason, and the police beat him like nobody's business, just because. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was a good movie, and it was a popular movie also. But it literally showed how these outcasts, these we call them the Saperas, right? The Saperas family. No, I'm telling you that the snake charmers families, they were treated, and it was actually a very moving movie, because you never think that in India up till now this thing is existing, but that is based on a true story.
In South Africa, I heard that when the oppression was at its peak, that time to buy groceries also they had like a time.
Yeah, they had.
Like you can't. They're like 4 to 6 or something like that.
Yes.
Because if you see them after that, they'll shoot you on the spot.
On the spot, they would shoot you. They didn't have freedom to breathe. It's as simple as that, because every small task was controlled by the Britishers.
The entire times.
What? If I remember, I'll tell you. But that's a movie which really, He fought for these people. I know, I can't remember the movie, but I tell you. But it literally, he was a lawyer who fought for these people, and ultimately he won. It was just an innocent, something went missing, and he was blamed, and he was killed by the police. And his body was thrown somewhere else, and the wife fought the case. She said, "My husband was innocent, and this one." It is Ambedkar, something I don't know. I'll just let you know. It is something which was very, very. Even when you talk about Ambedkar ji also fought for this very reason for the Dalits and all that, because they were also treated like that. So that is what I'm telling you. World is full of that, and here, even with him, even now, that's the saddest part. We have got freedom, but we don't know how to exercise our freedom. That is the problem. So we have at last achieved a political emancipation. We pledged ourselves to liberate our people from the continuing bondage of poverty. We had promised ourselves to liberate is to free our people from continuing bondage of poverty. You were under a bondage, you were under the jail. When you talk about of poverty, deprivation means you do not have any rights. That kind of a thing, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. So that every kind of discrimination they wanted to be free of. So that's what they had pledged, and that's what they achieved by fighting for freedom. Never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. So he made a promise that never, ever, he says, anybody will be oppressed by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Let freedom reign. Let freedom rule. And God bless Africa. He promised that never ever there's going to be any kind of discrimination in this country of Africa. He had made this promise, and he has kept his promise, though he's passed away. So you will see his different depiction right now and what he faced. You'll find two sides of the coin, what you say. Okay. A few minutes later, we all lifted our eyes in awe. What is awe? Surprise, amazement. As a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers rode in perfect formation over the Union building. So again, as I said, Republic Day parade, we had this all helicopters and aeroplanes and all that project all flying, right? So there was a beautiful array. Array is different varieties of things, okay? And it was not only a display of pinpoint precision, because remember, military, when you were talking about, they are very, very precise. The formations which they make in the sky, if you see the V formation and the different kind of formation, it has to be precise, very, very precise. Because even one like near this one can be disaster. Remember, we are talking about helicopters, planes, and all that. They have to keep at a particular distance, and it requires a lot of precision. And military force, but a demonstration of military's loyalty to democracy. So, military is a very, very important part of a country, and their loyalty is a must. So, military's loyalty.
Like an example of the military's importance is like Russian Revolution.
Yes.
When the King Tsar was there in the ground and was in like World War II.
Yeah.
Was there, and like the military who was actually starving, just stopped supporting him.
Yes. So that's what beta in every country you require military support. If your military support is not there, how are you going to win the war?
Like the 1857 revolution.
Correct. Correct. So, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. So they had this republican system where the government was freely and fairly elected by the people. Okay. Only moments before the highest general of South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked is decorated. Remember, they wear their medals and all that. So bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged me their loyalty. That is the irony. Before that, he was jailed. And the same people had jailed him. Now the same people are saluting him. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. The same people would have not saluted but they would have arrested him. Because why? He was fighting for the freedom. But very people would have put him behind the bars. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of black, red, green, blue, and gold. This is the color of the African flag. Black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flags. This was the new South African flag, and this was the colors. Ours is
Orange, white, blue,
white, and all this one green. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of white singing. Vision of white singing. What do you mean by vision of white singing?
See the white.
The white people were singing. Nyoski Cycle Africa. That means the die stem, the old anthem of the Republic. So this is the African anthem which they were singing, and the white people were singing. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, hated, they soon will know the words by heart. You see the beauty, because India is a cricket country. If I'm saying it is a cricket, not this one. So you see the beauty of it, or even if you go to Olympics, you see how proud you feel when your national anthem is sung. Automatically that pride, the shoulder goes back, you stand straight, your head is held high. If you if you ever be for a match, especially in India and Pakistan, you automatically get that feeling. Correct? You automatically feel that pride coming. I am an Indian. So imagine these people for the first time in their whole life listening to the national. They don't know the national anthem very, very thoroughly, but they will soon know because that is the first time where they are free and they will learn to be free. Janagana Mana, written by Rabindranath Tagore, also was not known by so many people during the freedom when we got freedom. Afterwards, it became a national pride for us, isn't it? At that particular time of the freedom, they will not know. Many people will not know the lyrics. But after that, we started singing and we are proud of that our national anthem. That a simple song, a simple lyric can instill that patriotism in that. That is what he's saying. That now nobody will know, but after some time everybody will know. That kind of pride is reflecting in what he's written. But on the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. He couldn't, all the emotions were rushing. That history, because how they fought, and he was very old when he was a president. How old he was?
60s.
It was the first decade of the 20th century. First decade of 20th century. We got in 1947. They got in first decade of 20th century. When does the 20th century starts?
The last decade of the 20th.
Wait, he's talking about when he was born. He's not talking.
Oh.
Read the complete statement before we comment.
Mom is so old.
See, it was the first decade of 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth. It is English and Dutch war. Boers are Dutch or the Dutch farmers basically, and there was a war between them. And they were like how we had Shivaji guerrilla warfare. Remember, we had a guerrilla warfare. The same. Sorry, ask me. I will explain better than him. And don't hide behind it. Move this side. Guerrilla warfare at Shivaji's time. I'm not talking about a game there. You will show your. Thank you. I didn't say the word, you said. Okay, now this was a war. Remember, these Boer wars, when you talk Boer was the Dutch. Dutch basically farmers, they were also, they are from, they call themselves Africans. But the thing is what, during this war, they were more that guerrilla warfare, they were very this one, and the Britishers were losing. But what they did, they changed their strategies. They took their women and children and they made them stay in camps. And there was thousands, a lakh people died, and then this one, and they changed their strategies, and ultimately the Britishers won. And this one. So this is what that time he was talking, the bitter Anglo-Boer War, because there were a lot of casualties. Casualties were deaths in that particular time. And before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination. After this, racial domination came into existence. Racial domination, judged by colors. Okay? Against the dark-skinned people of their own land. So this is where that particular, it was born. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the most harshest, most inhumane means the most cruel. You can't sit straight. Please come here. Get up from there and come here. Manchu, get up. On your own, you pay attention. With them, you don't pay attention. Okay. So, the structure was created to be one of the most harshest and most inhumane. Inhumane is very, very cruel. And societies in the world has ever known. And this now in this last decade of 20th century, now we come where you last decade of 20th century, they got their independence. 90. They got their independence in the 90s. And my own 8th decade as a man. 8th decade as a man is
80 years.
80 years. 80 years he was crowned the president. That system has been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognizes the rights and freedom of all people, regardless of the skin, color of the skin. 80 years he struggled to get independence, and finally he got. It took them a very, very long time.
They got their independence in the 90s.
Yes.
Recently, not even 40 years.
Not even 30 years, that's what. Imagine when we are celebrating 76 years. They have not just celebrating, must be 30, 35 years. We'll have to check. I don't know the dates, we'll check. Okay? That day had come about through the unimaginable. You never can imagine what the person has sacrificed to get that freedom. We never can imagine the amount of bloodshed, the amount of life lost. Like, even we talk about soldiers on that, guarding our country in the Himalayas, or we are talking about China border, or you never know how much sacrifice they have to, border one movie. Border, you will find different soldiers in that movie, which was why it was very popular, because you actually find glimpses of what they lead. Sometimes they like just got married and they have to leave their wife the day of the marriage. Sometimes it is like that only son of the family is killed. That's the saddest thing, that you never know how many lives have been sacrificed in order to protect the country. And here for the freedom of the country, how many lives have been how many mothers have lost their sons, their daughters, their grandkids, like that. Because the amount, as I said, when you talk about hatred, and this is the basis of hatred, when you talk about people bullying people, it is something which we don't realize how much loss and how much chaos. When we say war, both the countries lose their people. It's not only one. If India is losing somebody else, the other country is also losing their children. And why? Because they wanted to gain power. Russian and Ukraine war. Why it started? Because they wanted to expand their
There were
territory.
also videos about the Russian soldiers.
Yeah. They wanted that particular sea route. They wanted. It started with that. They wanted more power. It started with that.
Ukraine was a part of the show.
Yes, and they didn't want uh, that USSR coming back. It was first USSR, and that's what they started. It was just because they were more powerful. Now Russia is more powerful because it has a lot of petroleum. It has a lot of nuclear power.
I'm like,
But
it's
yeah,
planned
Russia
to
also
like allowed Ukraine to like fire back on.
Yeah, but that's what I said. The loss of life. I haven't thought about the loss of life, which goes, and this is just because power. Nothing else. It's something where the leaders feel they want to gain more power, and that's what is a loss.
Not like you said, desire for
Desire for power, desire to rule, desire to dominate, desire to be the world number one.
get
Or-
destroyed.
Yes, what we had desire yesterday's poem, day before yesterday's poem. Okay. Unimaginable to sacrifice 1,000 of my people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. You can't count and repay the person who's dead. What are you going to repay them? I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all African patriots who had gone before me. So he was standing in their place, their sacrifice, representing them. He is representing that very Africans who lost their lives while fighting for the freedom. So he felt that he was a part of them. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. So he was the leader at that particular. So that sacrifice was the end, and now it was a new beginning for them.
Now also the war is going.
Yes. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices has wrought. It is actually very, very painful when you can't, like, you always wish, like, your father can see how successful you have become. Your father may have passed away fast, or like your grandparents may have passed away early, or your one of your parents has passed away early. You can never, when you are at this particular, like success, when you have got success in life, you always feel that I wish she was here to see, he would have, or she was here to see, he would have been more proud. The same way he's saying, these freedom fighters, if they were here, if they had seen that we have finally got freedom, how proud they would have been, and how happy they would have been. That kind of feeling it is, that kind of emotion. Nobody can understand. That's why I said, you imagine if somebody has passed away and you just want to, you've got, you've achieved something in life and you want to share with them and they are not there anymore. That kind of emotion, that kind of feeling is very, very, yeah, it's very saddening rather. Hurtful, that sadness is there. The, the policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country. And it was a wound, basically, because the racial discrimination and all that, it was a wound for their country and the people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. It's like, it's like this wound which is fresh. It took, even a wound on your body takes a long time to heal, a deep wound, and we are talking about literally, that kind of a feeling. It's literally such a deep wound that it takes a long time to heal. Imagine you're not being operated, it is left as an open wound. It is a wound. I'm not talking of physical wound, I'm talking about emotional wound which doesn't heal. Trauma. It's a trauma which you face, emotional trauma. You cannot get over, because you if you meet with an accident, what happens? You meet with an accident on a bike, you are driving a bike, you lose confidence, you always, you are shaking before you try to get on. Cycle also, you will be shaking. You will be shaking. No, you,
When you have to drain the TV with that. So pakad. Like I'm scared of that.
yeah, because you must have burnt your hand.
I didn't.
That is what. If you have faced a terrible experience, if you get electrocuted, you will not touch electricity. If you fall down from a vehicle, your second time to get up on the vehicle. Children, when they are babies, when they are toddlers, mommy tells not to touch because they are very curious. They go and touch. After that, you don't have to tell the child to touch, not to touch. The child will not go because the child automatically. There is a little toddler in my building. There is a cycle which is reclining on the wall. Okay. It's not down. I'm talking about in our corridors. There's a cycle there on the second floor. This child, she is hardly 3 years old. 3 years old child. This child went and that's an adult cycle. So this child went and was playing with the cycle. Mother didn't pay attention and the cycle fell on her. Cycle fell on her. Adult cycle. Yesterday, I didn't know this. Yesterday, she's telling another 3-year-old, don't touch that, you get hurt with it. She was telling the 3-year-old, don't touch, you'll get hurt with it. Because experience. And when you learn that kind of experience, you are scared. And that fear told her, she automatically on her own told that child, don't touch, don't play with it, you get hurt with it.
Also like
It's like that. Now that is a simple incident. Wait. That is a simple incident I'm talking. Remember the amount of torture they face.
also one thing
You know how physical torture. Wait. You talk about physical torture. You talk about victims who are treated like I'm talking about physically hammering a person in the house. You get and that person, even when that person is standing there, you are scared. That person is scared of their own shadow. Because that person, that very person, the dictator, the Hitler, whatever you call that person, has literally mentally and physically tortured that person. So for them, it is a very deep wound. Other countries got freedom very years fun. It took them in 1900, basically in the last end of the 20th century, they got freedom. So that mental torture and physical torture, it is very difficult. You require to go to the psychologist. Now, like when you face a lot of bullying, you have to go to the psychologist to understand it is not your fault that you're getting bullied. It's somebody else's fault. It is. Now that that depression that comes in, like now we talk about the depression people are facing, because the amount of bullying they face. Every time they are being bullied. So imagine that and imagine this, how much of torture they have suffered. So how deep that wound is. And he says, but the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect. So that was it produced the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sisses, the Chief Luthulis, the Yusuf Dadus, and the Brad Pitchers, and the Robert Sobotskis of our time. These are men freedom fighters of Africa who, like, you will face like brutality till this one when you start fighting back. There's a limit of torture you will bear, and after that, when you know that now what else can happen is going to kill me, you start retaliating. There is a limit of that, and these are the freedom fighters. That's why we say Bhagat. You have certain names of freedom fighters for us also. You have Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, you have Bhagat Singh, you have Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, you have Lala Lajpat Rai, you have Mahatma Gandhi. Why only two? We are a country of billion. But why only few are remembered? Because these are the people who fought back and gave India the independence. And because of their courage, common people got the courage to stand up. That's why leaders are the ones who lead by example, and others follow. So these are the people. These are the actual people who fought for the freedom fighters. See, courage, wisdom, and generosity that their life may have never been known again. So people like people will like that kind of courage, that kind of wisdom. You will not find in every person. Very rarely these people come in. Now we know Bill Gates. Now you know who? Ambani. Yes. Now you know
Web business.
Elon Musk. But they also had to struggle before they got Musk. It's okay. But we got it. We understood who he was talking about. And but if you talk about Ambani's, I don't know. I'm not very this one of Anil Ambani or. There are people like if you talk about Dhirubhai Ambani, and I'm talking about Dhirubhai Ambani. I'm not talking about his son. He began from his father was a drunkard, and mother used to go and wash utensils at that particular time. He was not born rich. Do you know that? Do you know Dhirubhai Ambani's story?
Yes.
He was not born rich. What he used to do, his father always used to drink a lot, and he didn't have any money. He would those broken milk bottle and the bottles what his father used to this one you used to drink and keep, those bottles used to go and sell. From that money, what he used to get, he will go. You get in the tea stalls, you get these broken milk packets like nobody wanted. He would go and give the milk packet to the tea stall fellow and ask him to make tea, and then he would go and sell those tea. Then he would sell newspapers. That's how his life began. As a small boy, he began, and that's how he built up his own business. It was not handed over to him like on a silver platter. It is not something where people get easily. It is what they struggle for. It is what they literally struggle for. And he became the richest man only because of his hard work and determination. It was not something, as I said, handed on a platter. You all are getting it handed on a platter. You all are not seeing the struggles what your parents are going through. So that is what this kind of chapters bring about. That how much of the efforts they have put to get for you all to get freedom. And those kind of people you will find rarely. That kind of generosity because they left their own family and they fought for the whole country. That is kind of a generous thing. Perhaps it requires depth of operation to create such heights of character. And definitely you are feeling repressed, suppressed, and that forces you to act beyond yourself.
And
My country is
that's why all rich person get selfie and
sorry, all rich person become
all
selfie.
rich person selfie and
Selfie?
movie based
Selfie, okay.
क्या बोला
नहीं
I understood a different word.
shared with your stock manager.
It is not, it is
डॉली की टपरी
Dolly ki tapri and all that. It is not because it is a life struggle. It is talking about starting small and dreaming big. It is not giving up on their dreams. Because if you see, if you're talking about tea and all that, tea is something which a common person enjoys. And it is because of that, it is not, they used it as a stepping stone to become somebody great. That is what you all are supposed to be.
It is this girl, like in my mother's office, there's a janitor, and his daughter is just gave the board 2024 board exam. They have literally no facility. Like there are a bunch of people living in a very small house with only a fan. She goes to a state board school and still she managed to score 88%.
It is because of her determination and hard work. It is nothing else. It is always like that. If you work hard and you may not be the smartest child, but your hard work will make you get that percent. That's what I said. When you come here, don't waste your parents' money because already what I'm teaching, you're doing it in the school. But what you're not understanding is you're getting an advantage of learning it twice and understanding the concept of it. Other people cannot afford it. It is a trend because now tuitions is there. If you don't go for tuitions, parents feel that you are not. But you need to understand that the effort and the money which your parents are spending on you should be like utilized to the fullest. That's why I tell you, you all don't value what hard work and perseverance is gone to send to here. That's why they don't joke, don't waste that kind of thing. Whatever I'm teaching you, try to understand because you will learn it in the same school also. And whatever lessons in literature is, my dear, that is life lessons because this builds up character and morals. It is builds in qualities in you, not something which is done like that only. Other subjects, as I said, you are learning, but this literature teaches you that values, and you take it very lightly. That is a problem. Not understanding what hard work and perseverance has gone through to send you here. Don't take it lightly because you will not understand it now. Later on, you will come to know like every single rupee has been counted because there are number of bills which has to be paid. You will be in the same scenario like your parents. That is not there is a 100% guarantee, but you will count the money for everything what you're giving. And even when you have money, you will be wanting more money. You will never be satisfied, but you will not know that what is the value of that particular money. Okay. Perhaps this one, my country is rich in the minerals, and his country, South Africa, is very rich in minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. And it has a lot of rare gems, precious stones. Gems are your precious stones. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, pearl, emeralds, all that. So, but I always known that its greatest wealth is its people. Absolutely true. Only if there are people, only then is basically anything is worth. If you don't have people, it's as simple as human resources. But it's as simple as if you have your family today, you are happy. But when they are not there, then you realize their value. Finer and truer than the purest diamond, and it is actually finer and purer because of the qualities of what they brought to the world. That is what it is, the purest diamonds. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage, and he learned from the freedom fighters. He learned from them. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. Idea of freedom. That time they didn't get freedom. Just the idea of freedom that we will be free to do whatever we want. That particular thing. They risk their lives for that. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking. Remember the hammering what was given to Bhagat Singh? He didn't break. He didn't break. He was ready to give his life. He was hanged ultimately for it. But he didn't break. Showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. That your ability to stand, the resilience is that like ability to stand against torture. That like not giving up attitude. That is resilience. And they never gave up. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but triumph over it. We will always be scared in life. Every single thing you do, a new thing you do, you will always be scared. But getting over that fear, that is courage. That is called triumph over it. We are always going to be scared of something or the other, but trying to get over it is your triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid. That person is not called brave. That he is not afraid, I am not afraid. But he who conquers that fear. That is a person is brave. Like for example, he has stage fright. And then overcoming that stage fright and standing and talking in front of people is called courage. It is called courage. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin. And we are not born as kids just hating people. We are never taught. We learn to hate when we see our parents or society or siblings if you want. You learn through that. I think I gave an example of my own family. Simple thing I tell you. My niece was a baby, okay? When she was a baby, she was never scared of cockroaches. Okay? But my brother is scared of cockroaches and his wife is scared of cockroaches. So both the parents, whenever they would see a cockroach, they will start jumping and standing, running somewhere. Okay, and the child looking at that became scared. So you're not born of fear. You're not born learning to hate somebody. You are taught to learn to hate somebody. Because you see people around you, you see people in your family, you see people in your society who are following that. Why do we have so many religions? Because you have been taught in your family to worship a certain God. You were not born with a religion. You're born in that family. The family follows a religion. That is a difference. Have you understood? So that is what we are not born of hatred. We don't when we are born, we don't start hating people, but we are taught to hate. So that's what he's saying here. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background. Status, higher class, lower class, upper class, middle class. That was not taught. It is taught by humans, not you are not born with it. Or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. If you are taught to hate, you are also taught to love. For love comes more naturally to human heart than in its opposite. You will smile unknowingly to a person before you start hating that person because it comes more faster. Even in the grimmest time in prison, and he was tortured in the prison too. That's why the grimmest time he's talking about, the most the torturous time. When my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, and they were absolutely pushed to the limits. They were literally flogged and hammered, and the various tortures were done to them. I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards. One of the guards would behave in a human way, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. We all have good qualities, we all have bad qualities. It depends on which quality you want to be more prominent. And he said, even in that guards, when they were torturing them, there was some who was a little kind to him. You could see that humanity in that particular guard, and he never gave up hope. Now, this is what the last part of this one is. In every life, in life, every man has twin obligation. What was the twin obligation? I'm going to look at this
Obligation to his family and obligation
to his country. Last time in the PPT, I had told you obligation to his family and obligation to his country. Obligation to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children. One, when you're born, you have an obligation to your parents, you have an obligation to your brothers, sisters, you have an obligation to your relatives. Second, he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. You have an obligation to the society. You have an obligation to your community. You have an obligation to your country. It is in a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill this obligation according to his inclination and ability. In the society, also, you fulfill certain obligations. Obligations, what are obligations? Responsibilities. You have certain responsibilities you fulfill. Like, for example, we are talking, we're living in a country, we give income tax. We pay income tax to the government. This income tax is used for the roads, it is used for the military, it is used for, various purposes, development of the country. You know that, right? This income tax, what they covered, it is used for different parts of the development of the country, correct? So like that. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of these obligations. It was very difficult for him to fulfill both the obligations to his family or to his. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. Like a normal human being, eat, drink, in his own house, it was impossible. He was punished and he was isolated. Like, remember going out after a certain time, they would literally be shot dead, or they would have been literally hammered till they died. They would be literally flogged. There was a certain time to do everything. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home, and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. So he was literally, if he's going to bring food for his family, sometimes food ration is over and he's getting the food. He was taken and thrown into the jail, and he was all isolated there, and he was hit. He had to start rebelling because he wanted to fulfill his obligation to the and to his family. Sorry, why? There was a certain rule. If you broke the rule, which the Britishers made for their own convenience, if you broke that rule, then you are going to be thrown into the jail. As I said, even sitting near them was supposed to be like going against the rule. Going to the toilet was supposed to be. They had separate toilets. They had separate seats. Restaurants, most of the restaurants they were not allowed to enter. Like that, they were treated worse than animals. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. But in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented in fulfilling my obligation as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. So he didn't start with a freedom fighter. Oh, I'm going to be a freedom fighter today. Today I'm going to fight for my country. It was never like that. He's seen the restrictions and he sees what problems he associated living a normal life, and that forced his hand, and that forced him to become a freedom fighter and fight for his country. And in that, he couldn't fulfill his obligation as a father, as a son, as a husband. I was not born with a hunger to be free. As we said, we are not born of hatred. We don't start getting and hating somebody. He didn't have that hunger to be free at that particular time because he had a normal childhood. I was born free. Free in every way that I could know as a child. He never realized that he wasn't free. He was under an oppression. He was under depression. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut. So his mother's hut was there, he would run like a child. He would run around. Then free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village. In his village, there was a stream where he enjoyed his childhood. He would go and jump. You know how children are. They jump into the stream, they play about, they splash about that way. Free to roast mealies under the sky. Mealies are your corn. So you roast mealies under this one, corn under the sky. You do it now when you go to the village, if you see butta, corn, mealies under the sky, and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls. And he would sit on the cow bulls and he would ride. Bull rides, what you call. As long as I obeyed my father and abided the customs of my tribe. So he had a normal, as I said, his father, he had to there are certain rules in your family also. Like after 9 o'clock, you cannot go out of the house, or you don't have any parties or whatever.
They are made for our own well.
Correct, but here that's what it is. And abided the rules of his tribe. He had a tribe. I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. So no religion, no man. There was no oppression, and that is childhood. It was only when I began to learn my boyhood freedom was an illusion. Children are never told what difficulties their parents go through, as I said. So he didn't know that it was an illusion. What is illusion? Not real. Correct. His parents never let him feel that. And that's what, when he grew up, he realized that it was an illusion. When I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, and that I began to hunger for it. So he never had that kind of freedom of going anywhere where he wanted. He would never like to do any job what he wanted. That kind of freedom he never had. At first, as a student, I want freedom only for myself. So when he was learning, even in the classroom scenario, he was racially discriminated. Even in the classroom scenario, here you all are not discriminated because it is a free country. In a classroom scenario also, he was discriminated. So initially, he wanted freedom for himself. Okay, at that particular time. The transitory freedom of being able to stay out at night, Remember, there was a time limit. You can't stay out of that line. So that he wanted that. Read what I pleased. Reading also was banned. Banned. You have only certain things you can read, others you can't read. So you can't educate yourself that way. And go where I choose. So he was restricted of going to places also. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedom of achieving my potential. Achieving a potential, whatever you want to become in life. That also was restricted. Of earning my keep, earning, doing a particular job and getting a particular salary. But again, there's a discrimination. Why we are talking about women power nowadays? Because there's a discrimination between men and women.
And even now, some politicians believe that women are.
Yes, and that is going to head to that particular thing. Okay? Of marrying and having a family, that also was restriction. Like of marrying and having a family, also there was a restriction. The freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life, to live a lawful life, that also was restricted. As I said, everything there was a restriction. Every single thing there was a restriction. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. So it was, I directly realized that it is not about his freedom. It is also about other people who are facing the same problem. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed. Curtailed is stopped. But the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. So everybody who looked the same, who had the same color, they say it's the same problem. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom. So it began with wanting freedom for himself, for his family, and then it became freedom for everyone because everybody feels the same. Read.
Of my people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect. They animated my life that transformed a poor gold one. That drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal. That turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home. That forced the life-loving man to live like a monk, have no more virtues than or a self-sacrificing than the next man. But I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on anyone of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me.
Okay. What does it mean? It is a desire for freedom that my people are to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life. What does it mean? Yes. What does animated my life means?
That ran my life.
What? What did you say? What does it mean? Animated my life. Correct. It motivated. That was a power of motivation. The desire of my people to be free, to live their life with dignity,
Respect.
and self-respect is what?
Respect is
Dignity. Yeah. Very good.
yes, nah.
It is right, but there's a difference between respect and self.
Respect.
Then live their life honorably. Dignity, when you talk about live their life honorably. That means they can go out whenever they want, they can eat what they want, they can go to any theater where they want, all that. That is talking about nobody can curtail them. If I tell you no, you are not allowed to sit on the table, you are supposed to sit on the ground. You're not supposed to eat this food. I give them pizza and you are getting bhakri. It's a simple thing. You put yourself in that situation and you see how you feel. Put yourself in that situation. And that somewhere, if you see like that thing happening, I think you should raise your voice. Because unfortunately, there are places where this still happens. But we just turn a blind eye to that thing. Have you ever thought about you're eating a burger in the car maybe, and that other child on the road is standing there and looking at your face, and you want to be say, "Chal, ja idhar se." That transformed a frightened young man into a bold one. So he saw what the. You tell me, what are you supposed to do? Sorry? भाग जा बोलना उसको. क्यों भागेगी? That's what I'm asking you. What will you do?
तो तेरे पीछे भाग
Maybe that also, but that is not going to solve. That is the thing is what is happening. Is a simple thing is that I'll tell you a simple thing. You have maids in your house? Sometimes the children come to the house, your house? No. But just notice, if they come to the house, they are not like they immediately go and sit on the floor, they go sit on they will never sit on the sofa with you. I'm saying the first instinct, because their parents have taught them not to do this one. But that the first instinct of what you should do is make them sit on the sofa.
I watched a movie.
Vegan's one. Give sometimes your chocolates which you have, sometimes certain things, sometimes they are struggling in their studies. You can just help them out because you are, at least you know what you are learning. So that is what is the difference between educated people and not uneducated. Educated people also behave very roughly with others. It is when you talk about when you behave humanly with others. You are a human ultimately, and you're supposed to treat every human with respect, not treat them below you. That is what he's telling. It is not supposed. You're not supposed to teach and treat anybody inhumanly. This whole chapter is revolving around that. You cannot be inhuman to other people. See, so he was an attorney. Attorney is a lawyer. So he was a lawyer, law-abiding lawyer who became a criminal, and that turned a family-loving man into without a home. So he had a home. He had, because he was fighting for freedom. He was thrown in the jail. He didn't have any home any longer, and he was forced to a fun-loving, life-loving man to live like a monk. You know the monk, right?
Yes.
Because he was isolated. He was kept in isolation. So he was, they took away all his contact with his family and they threw him in isolation. I was no more virtuous.
Good heart, pure heart.
Qualities. Good qualities was this one. Or self-sacrificing, then the next one. He said, I didn't want to be self-sacrificing. I didn't want to sacrifice my family, my my education, anything. But he says I was forced to. But I found that I could not enjoy the poor, limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. He said that once I realized my people were not free, I was. Mahatma Gandhi was the same thing. If you remember, he was a lawyer. He was
from a rich.
He was from a rich family. He was a well-to-do family and all that. But he gave up that whole thing. That is called
He
sacrifice.
studied in South Africa and then
Yes.
he was
Freedom is indivisible. That means there is no division in freedom. Everybody has a right to be free. The chains of any one of my people were the chains on all of them, and the chains of all my people were chains on me. So if my people were chained, then I was also chained. That's what he said. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. That's what I was saying. The person who hates and the person who faces the hatred, both are suffering. So that's what he's saying. I knew that the oppressor is the Britisher, must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Free. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. And he is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. You become very, very narrow-minded. When you're prejudiced, you become very, very narrow-minded. I am not truly free if I'm taking away someone's freedom, just as surely as I'm not free when my freedom is taken away. So, as I said, you both are in prison. One is in prison of hatred because you are hating somebody, and one is whom you are hating. Both are prisoners because that person is also suffering, and plus you equally are suffering because you cannot think beyond your hatred. You know, when you start hating somebody, you want revenge, and beyond your revenge, you don't see that how many people are affected because of you. Have you understood? That's what he's saying. That if you hate somebody, you're already fixated on that person. But that person and your family also, that person's family and your family also are suffering equally, you don't realize that. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity, and they are robbed. They become inhuman, they become cruel, they become like, terrible.
Insane.
Yes, yes, thankfully. But you all, I have to say thankfully, that is the saddest part. Because I enjoy teaching. The problem with your reactions is that you all make me feel that I should wind it up early. And you all make me tired of it. And that is the saddest part. That is the saddest part. All right. Read.
The inauguration ceremony of the first non-racial government was held in the Union Building in Pretoria. Second, politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries attended the ceremony. Nelson Mandela was then sworn in as the President of the Republic of South Africa. For decades, South Africa had been the seat of white supremacy. The blacks were considered as outlaws. Their victory over apartheid was a common victory for justice, peace, and freedom.
These are your main points of your chapter, huh?
Minority rights.
No, but these are your main points of your chapter.
So,
Can you send this?
No.
Mandela was overwhelmed with a sense of history.
Yes.
The society based on racial discrimination was the harshest and most inhuman society in the world. The decades of oppression and exploitation of the black produced heroes like Tambu, Sisulu, and others in South Africa. Mandela learned the meaning of courage from such brave comrades who were ready to sacrifice their lives for the freedom of their people. Every man has two responsibilities towards his family and for his people and country. If any black tried to live like a free human being, he was punished and isolated from his family and community. Mandela realized that not only he but his brother and sister were deprived of freedom. His desire for the freedom and dignity of his people made him a rebel.
15, but he
He realized that freedom is indivisible.
So you have your Rashtrapati Bhavan, Red Fort, and Supreme Court of India in New Delhi, which are made of sandstone. You'll get this kind of question also. And I'm telling you, these kind of questions can come. What does Manila Times International Leaders for?
Ma'am, next week English का exam
सही
You can take.
You can't take me CT classes.
next time
Next week. Ma'am,
Okay.
next time you will.
अरे नीचे झुकना
ना
अरे पागल
अरे मुझे भी दे दो
अरे नीचे झुकना
बोलता ना उधर से
मेरे को भी सेंड कर
मुझे भेज देना अरे अब आप करके
You have this question and answers in your this one open point. Not this same question and answers.
ऊपर से करो आप
English.
अरे मैंने क्या किया
मैम स्क्रॉल
What are you doing?
बाद में पागल हो गया थोड़ा
मैम डाउन 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 प्लीज
अरे गाओ
मैम इज पुशिंग मी व्हेन आई एम टेकिंग
अरे मेरे हाथ मेरे पास है मेरे को पुश किया
With your legs you can't push.
my legs are behind physics pull right पहले किया था बहुत
Finish.
You also took my slip from my
Have you finished?
yes no
मेरा हाथ में पड़ गया क्या मैम finish close
मैम स्क्रॉल मैम लुक
बस मैम
look
अरे रुको ना तुम लोग
आप हो गया
ऐसे बुरी नहीं करते
सही बात
मैम
अरे अरे
क्या कर रहे हैं
मैम मत बोलो
Very light.
अबे यार सी ना व्हाट इज
तू है
मैं फिर हो गया
अरे मेरा हो गया मैं नेक्स्ट के लिए रुकी हूँ मैम बस
WhatsApp पे
And you do what with the WhatsApp? Open your this.
मैम समरी
मैम भी take print out
Yes.
समरी पॉइंट्स
अरे wait ना.
समरी
ये वहां पे सेंड कर देना
वहां पे सेट करा
हाँ
मेरे को
मैम
करूंगा
नहीं
मेरे को नहीं
अरे उधर रख लेते भाई ये बहुत धक्का देगा
अरे अरे पागल
हट जा बाहर रख ले
That's it.
अरे मैं
मोटू तू सेंड कर दे
ये हो गया ना हो गया
अरे जा समरी
काले यार
ये बुलेट पॉइंट्स हाँ
कर रहा है नहीं मैं बस हाथ
मैम वेट मैम बंद कर दो इनका नाटक चल रहेगा
भाई
बुलेट पॉइंट्स हो गए अरे तूने कितने फोटो निकाले
तीन तो तीन निकालो
अरे
दो तीन ही निकाले हैं भाई
6 फोटो है तेरे
दिखा
आप डिलीट कर दो
हाँ,
बिन के दिखाओ
दिखा
This is your subject.
3 बार किया था एक तो जब वो समरी ले पहले
समझ हां सही
बिना
अरे but the bullet points I gave you is the same thing ना.
मैम टाइम पास करता है
मैम स्क्रॉल
Yeah.
एक
That's
मिनट बाद
ये थैंक द हीरोज
या अंदर
हम देखो आजकल के बच्चे के पास फोन है
मेरे पास भी है बस
अबे आजकल
कवर
सही वो तुम पकड़ तो नहीं
हां वही
कवर था
अरे
उनका
अबे तारे